Hello there, and welcome back to the sleepy ocean. Tonight, we are going to leave the surface world behind entirely, letting the heavy, comforting weight of the water close over our heads as we descend into the past. We are visiting the sunken cities of the world, places where human history has been swallowed by the sea and preserved in a silent, blue museum. To begin our journey, we drift into the murky waters of Abu Qir Bay, off the coast of Egypt, where the ancient city of Heracleion lay hidden in the silt for over 1,000 years. This was once the grand port of entry to Egypt, a bustling metropolis of trade and religion before Alexandria was ever built. For centuries, it was thought to be a myth, a city mentioned only in fading texts and whispers of old sailors. But in the quiet darkness of the bay, roughly 30 feet down, the city emerged from the gloom. Divers exploring the seabed did not find scattered ruins, but a complete, frozen landscape. They found massive stone walls sleeping in the mud, and entire avenues lined with sphinxes, their stone eyes staring blankly through the green water. The discovery was a slow realization that the seabed itself was paved with history, a sprawling urban map that had been erased from the air but perfectly kept by the ocean, waiting in the stillness for the light to return. Among the shadows of Heracleion stands a figure of immense power and silence, the colossal statue of Hapi, the god of the Nile floods. Carved from red granite, this statue stands over 18 feet tall, a size that is difficult to comprehend until you are floating right beside it. In the water, the red stone takes on a muted, dark hue, covered in a thin veil of marine growth. This giant once stood before the great temple of the city, greeting sailors as they arrived from the Mediterranean. Now, he stands in the solitude of the bay. When divers first cleared the sand from his face, they revealed an expression of serene benevolence that had not been seen by human eyes for 12 centuries. The craftsmanship is so precise that the muscles of the torso and the pleats of the god's kilt are still sharp to the touch, unaffected by the erosion that would have scoured them on land. He is a testament to the preservative power of the deep, a guardian who watched his city sink and simply continued his watch in the dark, surrounded by schools of fish instead of priests. The sinking of this great Egyptian city was not caused by a war or a sudden wave, but by a slow, terrifying geological process known as soil liquefaction. Heracleion was built on a series of islands in the Nile Delta, constructing its temples and homes on soft clay and waterlogged soil. It was a precarious foundation, held together by the weight of the buildings themselves. But sometime in the 8th century, likely triggered by a severe earthquake or a massive flood, the ground simply gave way. The solid earth turned into a thick liquid soup. The heavy, stone temples, the massive statues, and the bustling markets did not topple over. They sank vertically. They slid straight down into the fluidized mud, swallowed by the very ground they stood on. This process was rapid but silent, burying the city instantly in a tomb of clay before the waters of the Mediterranean rushed in to cover the scar. It is a reminder that the land we stand on is often more fragile than the water that surrounds it, capable of dissolving into a memory in a single afternoon. Resting on the muddy bottom of the bay, surrounding the main temple, is the largest graveyard of ancient ships ever discovered. Over 60 shipwrecks have been identified in the immediate vicinity of Heracleion, a fleet of ghosts that never left the harbor. These were not all sunk at once. They represent centuries of trade and traffic. Some were deliberately sunk to block the channels, while others were victims of the catastrophe that claimed the city. The ships are incredibly well preserved, their wooden hulls protected by the oxygen-poor clay of the riverbed. Divers have found them lying side by side, their ribs protruding from the sand like the skeletons of whales. Among them are distinct types of vessels, from small local trading boats to massive seagoing galleys. They serve as a frozen snapshot of a busy afternoon in the port, where the noise of shouting sailors and creaking ropes was silenced instantly, leaving only the waterlogged timber to drift in the current for a millennium. One of the most poignant discoveries within the wreckage of Thonis Heracleion involves the everyday items that speak of a life suddenly interrupted. Inside the sunken ships and the buried houses, archaeologists found wicker baskets that were still filled with dome nuts and grape seeds. These are organic materials that should have rotted away centuries ago, but the specific chemistry of the silt in Abukir Bay created an anaerobic environment, a seal against oxygen and bacteria. The baskets, woven by hands over 2,000 years ago, are still intact. The fruit inside them is burned by time, turned black and hard, but still recognizable. It is a pantry that was locked by the ocean. To see a basket of fruit resting on the bottom of the sea is to see a ghostly echo of a snack that was never eaten. A humble, human moment preserved alongside the gold and granite of the gods. Moving slightly east across the bay, we encounter the sister city of Canopus, which suffered the same watery fate. Canopus was known in the ancient world for its decadent lifestyle and its shrines to the healing gods. Today, it is a landscape of fallen columns and scattered gold. The ocean floor here glitters in the beam of a diver's light. Gold coins, jewelry, and amulets were dropped in the panic of the sinking, or left as offerings that the sea claimed for itself. Unlike iron or bronze, gold does not corrode in seawater. It comes out of the mud as bright and yellow as the day it was minted. Finding a gold coin in the silence of Canopus is a striking contrast, a symbol of eternal wealth resting in a place where commerce has been dead for 1,000 years. The coins bear the faces of forgotten kings and queens, staring out from the sediment, their empires gone, but their currency still shining in the gloom. Leaving the warm, murky waters of Egypt, we drift north across the Mediterranean to the coast of Italy, specifically the Gulf of Naples, where the sunken city of Baiae lies beneath the waves. If Thonis Heracleion was a port of trade, Baiae was a playground. It was the Las Vegas of the Roman Empire, a resort town where emperors and senators built luxurious villas to escape the heat and laws of Rome. Today, those villas are underwater, located in a marine park where you can swim through the dining rooms of the Caesars. The floor of the ocean here is not sand, but elaborate mosaic. Black and white tiles form intricate geometric patterns and images of dolphins and wrestlers. These floors were once walked upon by Nero and Hadrian. Now, they are scrubbed clean by marine biologists so that divers can hover over them, looking down at the artistry of Rome through a lens of turquoise water. It is a surreal experience to float weightlessly over a floor that was designed for banquets, the silence of the sea replacing the music and laughter of the ancient world. The sinking of Baiae was caused by a phenomenon known as bradyseism, a gradual raising and lowering of the Earth's crust, caused by the filling and emptying of magma chambers deep underground. The city sits inside a massive volcanic caldera known as the Phlegraean Fields. Over centuries, the ground slowly deflated, lowering the coastline inch by inch into the sea. It was not a sudden catastrophe, but a slow drowning. The residents likely moved their furniture higher and higher, abandoning the lower floors one by one until the sea finally claimed the rooftops. This slow descent meant that the buildings were not destroyed. They were simply submerged. Walls, staircases, and statues remained standing as the water rose around them, creating a submerged ghost town that looks as if the people just stepped out for a moment and let the ocean in. One of the most spectacular sights in underwater Baiae is the Nymphaeum of Emperor Claudius. This was a private dining grotto designed to look like a natural cave filled with marble statues. Today, it sits about 20 feet underwater. The statues have been replaced with replicas to protect the originals, but the effect is the same. They stand in a semicircle, frozen in the act of pouring wine or gesturing in conversation. As you swim among them, fish dart between their marble limbs. The water distorts their faces, making them seem to move in the shifting light. It is a dinner party that has been going on for 2,000 years, attended only by the creatures of the sea. The statues are covered in a fine layer of algae, giving them a ghostly green skin, but their posture remains regal, a court of stone holding court in the deep. The geothermal energy that sank Baiae is still very much alive, creating a unique and sleepy atmosphere on the seabed. In certain areas of the sunken city, bubbles of volcanic gas rise continuously from the sand. These fumaroles create curtains of silver beads that drift upward toward the surface. The sand around these vents is warm to the touch. If you bury your hand in the sediment near a Roman wall, you can feel the heat of the volcano that lies beneath. This warmth encourages a unique ecosystem. Bacterial mats form white, fluffy patches on the seafloor, looking like underwater snow. It is a reminder that the city is resting on the back of a sleeping dragon, the very force that destroyed it, now providing a gentle, bubbling warmth to its ruins. Traveling west across the Atlantic, we arrive at the sunken pirate haven of Port Royal, Jamaica. Once known as the wickedest city on Earth, Port Royal was a hub of privateers, taverns, and wealth until precisely 11:43 a.m. on June 7, 1692. At that moment, a massive earthquake struck, and the sandy spit on which the city was built underwent liquefaction, much like Thonis Heracleion. 2/3 of the city slid into the harbour in a matter of minutes. Today, the sunken portion of Port Royal is a dark, murky time capsule. The water here is not the clear blue of Baiae. It is thick with sediment from the harbour. Visibility is often low, creating a spooky, enclosed feeling. Divers here do not see vast vistas. They see walls looming out of the fog, brick arches appearing suddenly in the gloom, and the chaotic tumble of a city that died screaming. One of the most famous artifacts recovered from the silt of Port Royal is a pocket watch, manufactured by a French maker named Blondel. The watch was found in the ruins with its gears encrusted and its hands frozen. X-rays of the mechanism revealed the exact time the watch stopped, 11:43. This small brass object serves as a definitive tombstone for the city, confirming the historical accounts of the earthquake almost to the minute. It is a mechanical memory, a device built to measure time that was forced to record the end of it. The watch sits in a museum now, but for centuries it lay in the mud, holding that specific minute in its rusted heart while the currents of the Caribbean washed over it, unaware that time had moved on. The preservation of organic matter in Port Royal is exceptional due to the nature of the catastrophe. The buildings didn't just fall, they sank into fluid sand which then hardened, sealing everything inside an oxygen-free vacuum. Excavations have revealed pewter plates stacked in cupboards, still waiting for a meal. Archaeologists have found leather shoes, scraps of clothing, and even the remains of a dog curled up in a doorway. But perhaps the most evocative finds are the bottles. Thousands of dark green onion bottles used to hold wine and rum litter the site. Some of them are still corked. The liquid inside has likely spoiled or turned to vinegar, but the air trapped in the neck of the bottle is air from 1692. It is a breath of the 17th century held captive in glass, resting in the racks of sunken taverns, where pirates once toasted their fortunes. The underwater archaeology of Port Royal is a task of feeling as much as seeing. Because the visibility is so poor, divers often have to map the city by touch. They run their hands along the submerged brick walls, feeling for the corners of buildings and the frames of windows. It is a tactile exploration of history. They have identified the layout of the streets, finding the intersections where the buildings buckled and slid. They have found the submerged Fort James, its cannons still sitting in their ports, aimed blindly into the murky water. The city is a three-dimensional puzzle hidden in the dark, a place where you have to close your eyes and use your hands to understand the scale of the destruction. Drifting back to the Mediterranean, but further east to the coast of Greece, we find the oldest submerged city in the world, Pavlopetri. Unlike the Roman or pirate cities, Pavlopetri dates back to the Bronze Age, roughly 5,000 years ago. It rests in shallow water, only 10 to 15 feet deep, just off a sandy beach in Laconia. From the surface, if the water is calm, you can look down and see the entire layout of the town. It looks like a blueprint drawn on the seabed. The foundations of the houses, the courtyards, and the streets are clearly visible, outlined in stone. It is not a ruin of chaos, but a neatly organized town plan that has simply been lowered into the water. Snorkeling over Pavlopetri feels like flying over a living map, a bird's-eye view of a society that existed before the Trojan War. Scattered among the foundations of Pavlopetri are cist graves, stone-lined boxes cut directly into the bedrock or built into the floors of the houses. In the Bronze Age, it was common to bury the dead within the home, keeping the ancestors close. Now, these graves lie open to the sea. They are empty of bones, but the stone slabs that formed them are still in place. Small fish use these graves as hiding spots, darting in and out of the rectangular shadows. It is a peaceful, if somber, sight. The final resting places of an ancient people now resting themselves beneath the gentle lap of the Aegean waves. The continuity of the home and the grave has been preserved by the sea, locking the domestic and the spiritual life of the city together in the stone. The industry of Pavlopetri is still visible in the small, unassuming objects scattered across the sea floor. Archaeologists have found hundreds of loom weights, clay or stone weights, used to hold threads taut on a vertical loom. These artifacts tell us that this was a city of textiles, a place where the rhythmic clacking of looms would have filled the air. Finding a loom weight underwater is a quiet connection to the daily work of the past. It conjures images of weaving, of cloth, of sails being made for the ships that once anchored in the harbor. The threads have rotted away thousands of years ago, but the weights remain, lying in the sand where they fell when the loom collapsed. Heavy reminders of the soft fabrics that once clothed the city. Traveling east to the coast of India, in the Gulf of Kambat, lies the legendary city of Dwarka. In Hindu mythology, Dwarka was the magnificent kingdom of Lord Krishna, a city of gold and crystal that was swallowed by the ocean after he left the earth. For a long time, it was considered purely a myth, but marine archaeologists exploring the waters off the modern town of Dwarka found massive stone structures, stone anchors, and pottery shards lying in the deep. While the city of gold remains a story, the reality is a massive port city that was submerged by rising sea levels thousands of years ago. The stone anchors found here are triangular and massive, suggesting that Dwarka was a major hub of international trade, welcoming large ships from Mesopotamia and Egypt long before history books usually acknowledge such connections. The underwater ruins of Dwarka are shrouded in the strong tidal currents of the Arabian Sea, which makes them difficult to study. The water is often turbulent, whipping the sand up and obscuring the stones. This gives the site an elusive quality, as if the city is fighting to stay hidden. The structures that have been found include bastions, walls, and pillars constructed from heavy limestone blocks. They appear and disappear with the shifting sands. Exploring Dwarka is a game of patience, waiting for the current to slacken and the dust to settle, revealing the ghostly outline of a wall or the curve of a pot. It is a city that exists in the intervals between the tides, a legendary kingdom that is slowly, reluctantly, revealing its solid roots to the modern world. The geological context of the Gulf of Combat suggests that Dwarka is not alone. It is part of a larger landscape of lost civilizations. The Gulf was once a fertile valley before the sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age. Sonar surveys have revealed vast geometric anomalies deep in the Gulf, suggesting river channels and settlements that are now over 100 feet underwater. These anomalies hint at a forgotten chapter of human history, cultures that thrived on the coastlines of the ancient world, only to be pushed back by the relentless march of the melting glaciers. Dwarka is the gateway to this sunken subcontinent, a single known point in a vast, unexplored map of drowned prehistory that sleeps beneath the heavy, grey waters of the Indian Ocean. Leaving the warm, silty currents of the Indian Ocean, we travel further east, following the Kuroshio Current to the southernmost tip of the Japanese archipelago, where the Yonaguni Monument lies in wait. This massive underwater rock formation off the coast of the Ryukyu Islands is a geological Rorschach test, a place where the line between nature and human engineering blurs into ambiguity. Rising from the seabed at a depth of 80 feet, the monument looks like a terraced pyramid or a citadel carved directly from the living bedrock. It is composed of sandstone and mudstone, shaped into sharp, right-angled edges, flat platforms, and vertical walls that seem too precise to be accidental. There are structures that resemble staircases, pillars, and a loop road that circles the base. Geologists argue that the strong currents and tectonic activity of the region could fracture the rock into these geometric shapes naturally, a process known as jointing. But to the divers who drift along its massive, flat terraces, it feels like hovering over the ramparts of a forgotten fortress, a place where an ancient people might have gathered to watch the sun rise over the Pacific before the sea levels rose and turned their temple into a reef. The waters surrounding the Yonaguni Monument are not the calm, sheltered bays of the Mediterranean. They are wild, open, and teeming with energy. The current here is powerful, often ripping past the stone terraces at speeds that make diving difficult. This constant flow of water has scrubbed the monument clean of much of the marine growth that usually hides underwater ruins, leaving the rock bare and stark against the deep blue. In the winter months, schools of hammerhead sharks gather here in the hundreds, circling the monument in silent, synchronized orbits. They use the rock formation as a landmark in the featureless blue, patrolling the ancient terraces like spectral guards. Seeing the silhouette of 100 sharks drifting over the sharp geometric angles of the stone creates a scene of primal, prehistoric beauty, where the raw power of the ocean meets the silent mystery of the stone. Moving from the salt water of the ocean to the deep, cold silence of fresh water, we journey to Qiandao Lake in China to find the Lion City, or Shicheng. This city did not sink due to an earthquake or a slow geological shift. It was drowned deliberately by the hands of modern progress. In 1959, a dam was constructed to create a hydroelectric reservoir, and the valley containing the city was flooded. Shicheng, which had stood for over 1,300 years, was submerged under 130 feet of water. Because it lies in a lake rather than the ocean, the water is still and free of the corrosive salt and shipworms that eat wood in the sea. This has created a preservation environment that is almost miraculous. The city is virtually intact. Wooden beams, staircases, and intricate carvings that would have rotted away in the ocean are perfectly preserved in the cold, dark, fresh water. holding the shape of the city exactly as it was the day the water rose. The architecture of the Lion City remains frozen in a way that feels more like a suspended animation than a ruin. The city walls, built during the Ming and Qing dynasties, still stand tall, guarding the empty streets. There are 5 entrance gates to the city, each originally topped with a wooden tower. While the towers have collapsed or floated away, the stone arches remain. Intricate carvings of dragons, phoenixes, and lions adorn the stone gateways, their details sharp and clear in the beam of a diver's light. In the ocean, these carvings would be covered in barnacles and sponges within decades, but in the lake, they are draped only in a fine, light silt. When a diver fans the water gently, the silt drifts away like smoke, revealing the stone eyes of a dragon that have been staring into the dark water for 60 years, waiting for a festival that will never return. The silence of Qiandao Lake is profound, a heavy, cold quiet that is distinct from the living noise of a coral reef. Because the lake is deep and the sunlight fades quickly, the city sits in a perpetual twilight that deepens to midnight black. There are no currents to rustle the sediment, so the streets of Shicheng are covered in a thick, undisturbed blanket of mud. Furniture still sits inside some of the houses. Wooden benches and tables, waterlogged and heavy, rest in the courtyards where families once gathered. It is a ghostly domesticity, a city that was not destroyed but simply put to sleep. The absence of marine life, no colorful fish, no coral, adds to the feeling of a sunken necropolis, a place where the only movement is the slow settling of dust in a library of stone and wood. Across the Pacific, in the highlands of Guatemala, another sunken secret lies beneath the surface of Lake Atitlan. This lake is a volcanic caldera, a massive bowl of water surrounded by 3 towering volcanoes. It is considered a sacred place by the Mayan people, and deep beneath its waters lies the lost site of Samabaj. This was a ceremonial center and settlement that thrived until a sudden catastrophic event, likely a volcanic eruption or a massive landslide, caused the water level of the lake to rise dramatically, swallowing the island city whole. Today, Samabaj sits under 100 feet of water. Divers have found the remains of plazas, houses, and stelae, carved stone monuments that formed the heart of the community. The site is scattered with ceremonial pottery, incense burners, and grinding stones, lying exactly where they were left 1,700 years ago, preserved by the cold, mineral-rich water of the volcanic lake. The pottery found at Samabaj tells a story of sudden abandonment and spiritual reverence. Many of the vessels are intact, sitting upright in the mud. Some are large, intricate urns used for offerings to the gods of the lake and the rain. The fact that they were not broken or looted suggests that the rising water was sudden and absolute, forcing the people to flee without their sacred objects. The silt of the lake has filled these jars, sealing them. To see a Mayan incense burner resting on the bottom of a volcanic lake is to see a prayer that was interrupted by the earth itself. The faces carved into the clay pots look up through the green water toward the surface, their open mouths silent, offering their contents to the spirit of the lake that claimed them. Traveling even higher into the Andes Mountains, on the border of Bolivia and Peru, we find the ruins of the Temple of Huanacu beneath the icy waters of Lake Titicaca. This is the highest navigable lake in the world, sitting at over 12,000 feet above sea level. The air is thin, the water is frigid, and the history is ancient. In 2000, archaeologists discovered a massive temple structure submerged off the coast of the Island of the Sun. The temple measures over 600 feet long, a sprawling complex of stone walls and terraces that predates the Inca Empire, belonging to the Tiwanaku culture. The rising level of the lake over millennia slowly drowned the temple, turning a place of sun worship into a sanctuary of the deep. The cold, low-oxygen environment of the high-altitude lake has preserved the stone masonry perfectly, hiding the grandeur of the ancients in a place where only the most dedicated explorers can reach. Hidden among the sediment of the Wanaku temple are offerings of gold and semi-precious stones, gifts given to the lake spirits by the Tiwanaku and Inca people. Divers have recovered gold medallions, silver llamas, and puma-shaped incense burners made of ceramic. These objects were likely thrown into the water as sacrifices during times of drought or crisis, or perhaps placed in the temple before it sank. Gold, which does not tarnish, glimmers in the darkness of the lake floor, a stark contrast to the grey gloom of the deep water. These artifacts are not just treasure, they are physical manifestations of faith, enduring proof of a civilization that viewed the lake not just as a resource, but as a deity, a living origin point for their entire cosmology. Returning to the Mediterranean, but moving back in time to the Neolithic era, we encounter the submerged village of Atlit-Yam off the coast of Israel. This is one of the oldest and largest sunken settlements ever found, dating back nearly 9,000 years. Unlike the grand stone cities of Rome or Egypt, Atlit-Yam was a simple farming and fishing village. It rests now in about 30 to 40 feet of water, protected by the sand. The site reveals the very dawn of human civilization. There are foundations of rectangular houses, hearths, and flint tools scattered across the seabed. But the most striking feature is a stone circle, a miniature underwater Stonehenge. 7 megaliths, each weighing over 600 kilograms, stand in a semicircle around a freshwater spring. In the Neolithic, this spring was on land. Now, it is a fountain of fresh water bubbling up into the salt water of the sea, a sacred spot that has been drowned but not silenced. The most intimate discovery at Atlit-Yam is the village well, a stone shaft dug deep into the earth to reach the water table. As the sea levels rose, at the end of the Ice Age, the salt water began to contaminate the freshwater aquifer. The villagers attempted to save their well by throwing stones and clay pottery into it, trying to raise the bottom or seal it off. Eventually, they abandoned it. Archaeologists excavating the well found it filled with thousands of olive stones, animal bones, and stone tools, a time capsule of their daily diet and trash. But near the bottom, they found something more tragic: the skeletons of a woman and a child. They were not thrown in. They were buried there carefully after the well went dry. The bones revealed the earliest known cases of human tuberculosis, a disease that lived in the village 9,000 years ago, preserved in the DNA of the bones resting at the bottom of a drowned well. Alongside the human history, Atlit-Yam preserves the history of the land itself. The site contains the bones of wild cattle, boars, and gazelles, proving that this submerged coast was once a lush, fertile plain used for hunting and early animal husbandry. There are piles of fish bones, specifically triggerfish, indicating that the villagers were skilled fishermen who ventured out into the open sea. The rising ocean was a slow, relentless force that pushed these people back, inch by inch, until their homes, their fields, and their graves were claimed by the waves. It is a slow-motion apocalypse that took centuries, a reminder that the coastline is never a fixed line, but a moving boundary negotiated between the earth and the water. Further north, along the coast of the Levant, lies the magnificent sunken harbour of Caesarea Maritima. Built by King Herod the Great in the 1st century BC, this was a feat of engineering that defied the natural world. Herod wanted a port where there was no natural bay, so he built one using massive concrete blocks. This was the first large-scale use of hydraulic concrete, a mixture of volcanic ash, lime, and seawater that hardens underwater. The blocks, some weighing 50 tons, were poured into wooden barges, which were then sunk in place to form breakwaters. Today, the ruins of these breakwaters stretch out into the sea like the arms of a ghost. You can dive along the submerged moles and see the remains of the wooden forms trapped in the concrete for 2,000 years. A testament to the ambition of a king who tried to command the sea and built a mountain of stone to prove it. The destruction of Caesarea's harbour was likely caused by a tsunami that struck the coast in the 1st or 2nd century AD. The harbour was built directly over a geological fault line. When the earth moved, the massive breakwaters liquefied the sand beneath them and collapsed into the sea. The grand lighthouse, which guided ships from Rome, toppled into the waves. The rubble of the harbour now acts as an artificial reef, covered in sponges and anemones. It is a landscape of tumbled giants, where columns of marble and blocks of concrete lie in chaotic piles, softened by the growth of marine life. The sea took back what Herod stole, turning the orderly geometry of the port into a wild, organic garden of stone. In the cold, grey waters of the North Sea, off the coast of Germany, lies the legendary sunken settlement of Rungholt. Known as the Atlantis of the North, Rungholt was a wealthy trading town in the medieval period, situated on the island of Strand. On January the 16th, 1362, a massive storm tide, known as the Grote Mandrenke, or the Great Drowning of Men, swept across the coast. The storm surge was so powerful, it completely disintegrated the island, washing the town and its inhabitants into the sea. For centuries, Rungholt was considered a myth, a fable told to warn against pride and wealth. But in modern times, the shifting tidal flats of the Wadden Sea have revealed the truth. At low tide, when the water pulls back, the mudflats expose the stumps of wooden posts, the foundations of dikes, and the wells of the lost town. It is a city that appears and disappears with the moon, a ghost that rises from the mud to breathe before being covered again by the grey tide. The landscape of the Wadden Sea around Rungholt is a place of desolate, shifting beauty. It is not a deep ocean ruin, but a tidal grave. Artifacts found in the mud include pottery shards, jewellery, and the bones of domestic animals, all scoured by the sand. The most haunting finds are the plough marks preserved in the hardened clay beneath the silt. These furrows were cut by farmers over 600 years ago, days before the storm hit. They are fossilized moments of labor, lines drawn in the earth to grow food for a winter that the ploughman never lived to see. The mud of the North Sea is a heavy, suffocating blanket that preserves the shape of the land as it was, holding the memory of the fields in the dark, wet earth. Across the North Sea, on the coast of England, the village of Dunwich tells a story of slow, agonizing erosion, rather than a sudden catastrophe. In the Middle Ages, Dunwich was one of the largest ports in England, rivaling London in size. It had 8 churches, 5 religious houses, and a bustling harbour. But Dunwich was built on soft, sandy cliffs. Year by year, storm by storm, the sea ate the land. The cliffs crumbled, taking houses, streets, and churches with them. Today, almost the entire medieval city is underwater, stretching out miles from the current shoreline. Divers and sonar scans reveal the ruins of the churches lying on the seabed, their stone towers toppled and broken. Legend says that during storms, You can still hear the bells of the sunken churches ringing beneath the waves, a phantom tolling caused by the currents moving the loose clappers in the deep. The underwater ruins of Dunwich are difficult to see because the water is thick with the very silt that destroyed the town. It is a dark, murky dive where visibility is often less than an arm's length. This darkness adds to the mystery. Divers feel their way around the rubble of the All Saints' Church, the last to fall in 1919. They find tombstones that slid from the cliff edge, now resting among the crabs and lobsters. The graveyard of Dunwich has been relocated to the seafloor. The headstones standing crookedly in the sand, their inscriptions eroded by the salt and the shifting tides. It is a city that died by inches, a slow surrender to the patience of the ocean that continues to gnaw at the coast today. In the Black Sea, near the Taman Peninsula of Russia, lies the submerged Greek city of Phanagoria. This was the largest Greek colony on the Taman Peninsula, a major hub of trade between the Greeks and the nomadic tribes of the steppes. A third of the city is now underwater due to rising sea levels. Excavations in the submerged quarter have revealed a history of war and rebellion. In 2011, archaeologists found a massive marble sarcophagus underwater, untouched by looters. Nearby, they found the remains of a fire and a violent destruction layer, linked to the revolt against Mithridates VI, the famous king of Pontus. The city was burned and parts of it sank, sealing the evidence of the battle in the silt. We find bronze battering rams from ancient warships and coins stamped with the face of the king, lying in the quiet mud where the harbor once stood. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, off the island of Upolu in Samoa, lies the submerged site of Mulifanua. This is not a city of stone, but a remnant of the Lapita people, the ancient ancestors of the Polynesians. In the 1970s, during the dredging of a lagoon for a ferry terminal, workers discovered thousands of pottery shards decorated with the distinctive geometric patterns of the Lapita culture. These shards were found embedded in a submerged coral reef that is now several feet underwater. Dating of the pottery revealed it was over 3,000 years old. This site proves that the islands were inhabited far earlier than previously thought, and that the coastline has changed dramatically. The Lapita village was built on a sandy beach that is now part of the lagoon floor. The pottery pieces, with their intricate dentate stamps, sit among the living coral, a blend of human art and marine biology that marks the path of the greatest voyages in human history. Finally, we must look at the vast submerged landmass known as Doggerland, which lies beneath the waves of the North Sea between the UK and mainland Europe. This was not just a city, but a country, a lush, fertile landscape of forests, rivers, and hills that connected Britain to the continent during the last ice age. It was the heart of Mesolithic Europe, teeming with herds of mammoths, deer, and human hunters. As the ice melted and sea levels rose, Doggerland was slowly drowned. The final blow came around 6,200 BC with the Storegga Slide, a massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway that triggered a mega tsunami. The waves swept over the remaining low-lying islands of Doggerland, wiping out the human population and submerging the land forever. Today, fishermen in the North Sea frequently pull up mammoth tusks, stone axes, and human bones in their nets. These are the debris of a lost world, the Atlantis of the Stone Age, sleeping beneath the cold grey waves of one of the busiest seas on Earth. Traveling back to the cradle of classical civilization, we drift toward the Gulf of Corinth in Greece, searching for the lost metropolis of Helike. In 373 BC, this city was not merely destroyed, it was erased from the geography of the Earth in a single terrifying night. A massive earthquake struck, instantly liquefying the ground beneath the city, turning the solid earth into a deep, watery abyss. The entire city, along with its famous Temple of Poseidon and all its inhabitants, slid downward into the earth, and simultaneously, a massive tsunami from the Gulf swept in to fill the void. For centuries, ancient writers like Pausanias reported that you could sail over the site and see the bronze statue of Poseidon standing upright in the murky lagoon, his hand still clutching a trident that would snag the nets of fishermen. Over 2,000 years, the lagoon silted up, burying the city not under the sea, but under the land itself. It was only recently rediscovered, not by divers, but by digging into the waterlogged soil of a plain, finding the walls of the lost city preserved in the wet clay, a city that drowned in the earth rather than the ocean, held in a suspended state of geological shock. Drifting east to the turquoise coast of Turkey, near the island of Kekova, we encounter the haunting beauty of the sunken city of Semena. This was a Lycian trading post, a place of commerce and stone masonry that was partially submerged by earthquakes in the 2nd century AD. The ruins here possess a dreamlike quality because they straddle the line between the air and the water. You can paddle a kayak over the sunken foundations of houses and look down through the glass-clear water to see amphorae and staircases leading into the blue. But the most arresting sight is the Lycian sarcophagi. These massive stone tombs, with their distinctive Gothic arch lids, once stood on the hillsides. Now, some of them stand in the middle of the sea, rising out of the water like stone islands. They are half-drowned monuments to the dead, their inscriptions washed daily by the gentle tide, creating a necropolis where the crypts are guarded by schools of fish, and the only visitors are the silent currents. Further across the Mediterranean, off the coast of Naboul in Tunisia, the ocean floor reveals the industrial scale of the Roman Empire at the sunken site of Neapolis. This city was devastated by a tsunami in 365 AD, the same event that rocked Alexandria. For centuries, it was just a name in history books, but recent underwater expeditions have uncovered a sprawling complex of stone tanks and vats covering nearly 50 acres. These were not homes, but factories. Neapolis was a major center for the production of garum, the fermented fish sauce that was the ketchup of the Roman world. The massive vats, now filled with sand and seagrass, were once brimming with fish guts and salt, fermenting in the sun. It is a sunken industrial zone, a place where the pungent smells of production have been replaced by the clean, salty scent of the sea, and the hustle of workers has given way to the slow grazing of sea urchins on the vat walls. In the shallow waters of the Saronic Gulf in Greece lies the sunken city of Epidauros, a site so accessible that it can be explored with nothing more than a mask and a snorkel. Unlike the deep, dark wrecks of other regions, Epidauros rests in only 6 feet of water, bathed in bright, rippling sunlight. It is a sunken villa or farmstead, where the walls of the rooms are clearly outlined on the sandy bottom. But the most remarkable feature here is the storage. Buried in the sand are immense clay jars, known as dolia, used for storing oil and wine. These jars are so large that a person could curl up inside them. They remain embedded in the floor of the sunken pantry, their mouths open to the surface. Small octopuses and crabs have made homes inside these ancient containers, repurposing the food storage of a Roman household into dens for the creatures of the shallow reef. Moving to the island of Crete, in the quiet bay of Alunda, lies the submerged city of Elus. This was once a powerful city-state, minting its own coins and housing a sanctuary to Zeus. It sank not because of a sudden catastrophe, but due to a slow, tilting landslide that slipped the entire city into the bay. On a calm day, when the wind dies down and the surface of the bay becomes a mirror, you can look over the side of a boat and see the city floor. The most beautiful remnant is a mosaic floor made of black and white pebbles depicting birds and fish. It lies in the shallows, scrubbed clean by the movement of the sand. It is a floor that was meant to be walked upon by sandals, now eternally washed by the sea, its intricate patterns shimmering as the sunlight refracts through the water, animating the stone birds with a semblance of flight. Leaving the warm Mediterranean for the cold, tannin-stained waters of Scandinavia, we descend to the Mesolithic site of Tybrandsvig off the coast of Denmark. This is not a city of stone, but a settlement of wood and organic matter dating back 7,000 years. The cold, oxygen-deprived mud of the Baltic region is a miraculous preservative. It has saved things that should have rotted away millennia ago. Divers have recovered wooden canoe paddles that are not just shaped wood, but painted. They bear intricate, rhythmic designs in black ochre, the artistic expression of a people who lived before the pyramids were built. They have found scraps of woven fabric and pieces of bows. It is a soft, organic ruin where the delicate tools of daily life are pulled from the sludge, looking almost new, protected by the very muck that swallowed the village as the sea levels rose after the Ice Age. Crossing the North Sea to the Isle of Wight in the United Kingdom, we find the submerged cliff of Baldnor Cliff, a site that is rewriting the history of ancient Britain. Hidden 35 feet underwater in the Solent, this was a boat-building yard roughly 8,000 years ago. The currents here are strong and muddy, hiding the secrets well. But in the sediment, archaeologists found timbers that were worked with advanced flint tools, showing a sophistication previously unknown for that era. The most shocking discovery, however, was not wood, but DNA. By analyzing the sediment, scientists found the genetic signature of einkorn wheat, a crop from the Middle East that was not supposed to be in Britain for another 2,000 years. This submerged boatyard hints at a lost trade network connecting the hunter-gatherers of ancient Britain to the farmers of the continent, a connection that was severed and drowned by the rising English Channel. On the western edge of Wales, the legend of Cantrea Gwaelod, the Lowland Hundred, speaks of a sunken kingdom protected by dikes and sluice gates, which was flooded when a drunken watchman left the gates open during a storm. For centuries, this was dismissed as folklore. However, at extremely low tides, particularly after heavy winter storms strip the sand away, the beach at Borth reveals the remains of a submerged forest. The stumps of ancient oak, pine, and birch trees emerge from the peat, their roots still gripping the clay. These trees have been radiocarbon dated to around 40,500 to 6,000 years ago. While not a stone city with sluice gates, it is a drowned landscape where humans once walked and hunted. The fossilized footprints of children and animals have been found in the hardened mud between the trees, transient moments of life preserved in the seabed of a kingdom lost to the rising tide. In the Bay of Douarnenez in Brittany, France, the myth of the City of Ease is deeply ingrained in the local culture, a tale of a debauched city swallowed by the waves as punishment for its sins. While the golden city of legend remains elusive, the bay hides a very real industrial past. Underwater surveys have revealed the extensive remains of Roman fish salting troughs and garum factories lining the submerged coast. The Romans utilized this coastline heavily for industry before the sea encroached. The city was a sprawling complex of production, now marked by the geometric outlines of the fermentation tanks cut into the bedrock. These rectangular pools, now filled with seawater and seaweed, were once the economic engine of the region, a place of intense labor now silenced and integrated into the jagged, rocky bottom of the Atlantic coast. Traveling deep into the heart of Central Asia, to the high-altitude waters of Lake Issyk-Kul in Kyrgyzstan, we find a sunken settlement that served as a waypoint on the ancient Silk Road. The lake is vast and incredibly deep, and its name means warm lake, because it never freezes despite the frigid mountain air. Beneath its surface lie the ruins of a metropolis that dates back over 2,500 years. Divers have found bronze arrowheads, daggers, and gold ornaments belonging to the Saka civilization, a nomadic Scythian people. The most intriguing finds are large ceramic pots with distinctive loop-like handles that match those found as far away as Greece and China. This underwater site proves that the lake was a cosmopolitan hub where traders from east and west met, exchanged goods, and rested before the waters rose and hid their market stalls beneath the cold, crystal blue mountain runoff. In the Yunnan province of China, beneath the waters of Fuxian Lake, lies a mystery that has been compared to an underwater pyramid. In 2001, sonar surveys and divers discovered a massive collection of stone structures scattered across the lake floor, covering an area of nearly a square mile. The stones are dressed and arranged in orderly formations, including a large step-like structure that rises nearly 60 feet from the bottom. The architecture does not match the traditional wood and earth style of ancient Chinese cities, leading to speculation about the culture that built it. This underwater Maya, as it has been sensationalized, is likely the remains of the ancient city of Yuyuan, which disappeared from historical records around the Han dynasty. The massive stone slabs, some weighing tons, sit in the silence of the lake, covered in a fine layer of algae, a heavy, brutalist architecture that has resisted the erosion of time in the still water. On the southeastern coast of India, the town of Mahabalipuram is famous for its shore temple, a stone pagoda standing at the edge of the sea. But local legend always spoke of the 7 pagodas, claiming that 6 other temples were submerged just offshore. In 2004, the horrific tsunami that devastated the Indian Ocean briefly pulled the water back hundreds of yards before the wave struck. In that terrifying moment of recession, the villagers saw the legends revealed. A long, straight row of massive stone rocks and carved statues emerged from the seabed, shaking off the water and the sand. Subsequent underwater expeditions confirmed the existence of a vast complex of submerged temples, walls, and platforms dating back to the Pallava dynasty. The sea had been hiding a city of shrines, covering the carvings of lions and elephants with barnacles, allowing them to be seen only when the ocean took a deep, violent breath. Further south along the Indian coast lies the submerged port city of Pumpuha, the capital of the early Chola kings. Described in ancient Tamil epic poetry as a magnificent city of high mansions and bustling markets, it was said to have been swallowed by the sea in a single event. Marine archaeologists have traced the coastline of this lost city miles out into the Bay of Bengal. They found a submerged, man-made reservoir, brick structures, and pottery shaped like Roman amphorae, confirming the city's global connections. The sediment here is thick, burying the city in a deltaic grave. Pumpuha is a city that lives in poetry and mud, its layout preserved in the verses of the Manimekalai and the sonar scans of the modern world, a literary memory given physical form in the deep. Crossing the Atlantic to the pampas of Argentina, we find the modern ruin of Villa Epecuén, a tourist town that drowned not in the ancient past, but in 1985. A Seiche wave broke a dam after years of heavy rain, and the saltwater lake of Epecuén flooded the town, submerging it under 30 feet of corrosive, salty water. It remained underwater for 25 years. Recently, the water receded, revealing a landscape that is utterly bleached and petrified. The trees that line the streets are dead white skeletons, encrusted with salt crystals. The concrete buildings are stripped of paint and plaster, leaving raw, grey shells. The slaughterhouse, the hotels, and the rusted car frames sit in a silence that is blindingly white under the sun. It is a ghost town that looks like it was carved from salt, a modern Pompeii created by a slow flood and preserved by the brine. In the arid desert of Nevada, the waters of Lake Mead hide the town of St. Thomas. Founded by Mormon settlers in 1865, it was a stopping point on the route between Los Angeles and Salt Lake City. When the Hoover Dam was built in the 1930s, the waters of the Colorado River rose and swallowed the town. The residents dismantled their wooden houses and left, but the foundations, the school steps, and the tree stumps remained. As the western United States suffers from prolonged drought, Lake Mead has dropped and St. Thomas has emerged from the deep. Visitors can now walk the muddy, cracked streets of the ghost town, finding old anchors and rusted engines embedded in the silt. It is a town that breathes in decades. It drowns for 50 years, then emerges to dry in the sun, a cycle of submergence and revelation dictated by the thirst of the cities downstream. Beneath the surface of the St. Lawrence River in Canada lie the lost villages of Ontario. In 1958, to create the St. Lawrence Seaway, a massive engineering project required the flooding of 9 villages. Over 6,500 people were relocated, and their homes were moved or demolished. But the foundations, the sidewalks, and the roads were left behind. On a clear day, flying over the river, you can see the ghostly grid of the streets under the water. Divers can swim along the old highway too, following the yellow line that is still visible on the asphalt. They find the locks of the old canals, the basements of farmhouses, and the fences of gardens where flowers once grew. It is a modern Atlantis, created by bureaucracy and dynamite. A quiet, suburban landscape where the fish now swim through the invisible living rooms of the 1950s. In the snowy mountains of Australia, the town of Old Adaminaby sleeps beneath the waters of Lake Yucumben. Flooded in 1957 as part of a hydroelectric scheme, the town was a sacrifice for power. When the lake levels drop during droughts, the town re-emerges in a haunting display. The most prominent feature is the outline of the old streets and the foundations of the buildings, marked by the resilient distinctiveness of the local stone. The trees that once lined the avenues are now skeletal stumps, but the layout of the community is perfectly preserved. People who once lived there return to walk the muddy streets of their childhood, picking up pieces of crockery and old horseshoes from the lake bed. It is a town that exists in 2 states, a memory under the water and a muddy reality in the dry season. In the Spanish Pyrenees, the village of Mediano provides one of the most striking images of a drowned town. The village was flooded in 1969 to create a reservoir, but the church, dating from the 16th century, was too tall to be completely submerged. Today, the bell tower of the church juts out of the lake like a stone finger pointing to the sky. Divers can enter the church through the windows and swim through the nave, hovering over the altar. The water inside is still and eerie, filtering the light through the submerged arches. When the water level is high, only the tip of the tower is visible. When it is low, the entire church emerges, dripping and muddy, a cathedral of the deep that refuses to be completely buried by the dam. Similarly, in the Italian Alps, the village of Curon Vernosta, Graun, lies at the bottom of Lake Rhaetian. The village was destroyed and flooded in 1950, but its 14th century bell tower was left standing. It rises directly out of the water, a surreal landmark against the backdrop of the mountains. In the winter, when the lake freezes over, you can walk across the ice to the tower and touch the stone walls that once rang out the hours for a village that no longer exists. Legend says that on quiet winter nights, you can still hear the bells ringing, even though they were removed before the flood. It is a sound of phantom memory, a tolling for the homes that lie crushed and silent beneath the ice and dark water. The acoustics of these sunken ruins create a unique sensory environment known as the drowned resonance. Stone walls, empty cisterns, and hollow jars interact with sound differently underwater than they do in air. Sound travels 5 times faster in water, and when it hits the hard surfaces of a sunken city, it reflects with very little loss of energy. If a diver taps on a stone column in Baiai, or shouts into a mosque in Qiandao, the sound echoes crisply, carrying for long distances. In the silence of the deep, where the background noise is only the crackle of shrimp or the hum of a distant boat, these ruins act as acoustic amplifiers. The spaces built for human voices, the amphitheaters, the churches, the market squares, still hold the physics of sound, waiting for a noise to amplify, creating a ghostly resonance that makes the empty city feel like it is holding its breath, waiting to speak again. Floating through the ancient, sun-drenched waters of the eastern Mediterranean, we arrive at the submerged harbour of Tyre in modern-day Lebanon. This was the great Phoenician mother city, the birthplace of the alphabet, and the source of the legendary Tyrian purple dye. The history of Tyre is written in its geography. It was originally an island fortress that defied conquerors for centuries, until Alexander the Great built a massive causeway of stone and timber to connect it to the mainland in 332 BC. Over the millennia, the currents deposited silt against Alexander's bridge, widening it into a permanent isthmus, but the southern harbour, the Egyptian port, sank beneath the waves. Today, divers can drift over the massive Roman columns made of granite imported from Aswan, lying horizontally on the seabed like fallen trees in a stone forest. The visibility is often obscured by the fine sand of the Levant, giving the ruins a soft, hazy appearance. You can see the remains of ancient dry docks and jetties that were once bustling with the trade of cedar and dye, now quiet and covered in a velvet layer of brown algae, a commercial hub turned into a sanctuary for sea turtles. Just beneath the surface of the great harbour of Alexandria, separated from the main ruins of Thonis Heracleion, lies the sunken island of Antirodos. This was the site of Cleopatra's royal palace, a place of intimate luxury that is now a landscape of tumbled grandeur. The island did not disappear due to a single dramatic event, but succumbed to a slow series of earthquakes and tsunamis that liquefied the ground over centuries. Divers exploring the site have found the original pavement of the esplanade where the queen herself would have walked, the stone blocks still joined together in the gloom. The most striking find was a granite sphinx with the head of Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII, resting on the bottom as if guarding the entrance to a throne room that no longer exists. The water here is shallow enough that on a bright day, the sun ripples across the Sphinx's face, animating the stone features with shifting patterns of light, creating the illusion that the statue is breathing in the shallow, heavy water of the harbour. Moving west along the North African coast to Libya, we find the submerged Greek city of Apollonia. Known as the City of the Sun God, it was a major port of the Pentapolis of Cyrenaica. A massive earthquake in the 4th century AD caused the entire coastal shelf to drop, taking the harbour district with it. The ruins are exceptionally clear because the coast here is rocky and free of river silt. You can swim through the remains of a large rectangular swimming pool cut directly into the rock, which was once part of the Roman baths. The pool is now filled with seawater and brightly coloured wrasse, blending the leisure of the ancient Romans with the natural aquarium of the Mediterranean. Nearby, the massive stone tanks used to keep live fish and turtles for the market are still intact, their walls standing firm against the tide. It is a city where the infrastructure of water, baths, tanks, and cisterns has been reclaimed by the ultimate body of water, the ocean itself, fulfilling the architectural purpose of the ruins in a way the builders never intended. leaving the warmth of the Mediterranean for the icy interior waters of Russia, we encounter the haunting spire of the Kalizin Bell Tower. This is not a ruin of antiquity, but a victim of 20th century industrialization. In 1939, Joseph Stalin ordered the creation of the Uglich Reservoir by damming the Volga River. The medieval part of the town of Kalizin, including the monastery of St. Nicholas, was flooded. The cathedral was dismantled, but the bell tower was left standing, rising 245 feet into the air. Today, it stands alone in the middle of the artificial lake. The base of the tower is submerged, and in the winter, the lake freezes solid, locking the stone in a grip of white ice. It is a surreal sight, a belfry without a church, rising from the water or the ice like a lighthouse for a town that is sleeping in the mud below. The bells were removed to prevent them from ringing in the wind, leaving the tower silent, a stone finger pointing at the sky in mute testimony to the monastery that lies dissolved in the dark currents of the Volga. Further north in Russia lies the Russian Atlantis, the town of Mologa. Located at the confluence of the Mologa and Volga rivers, this city existed for nearly 8 centuries before it was completely submerged in 1941 to create the Rybinsk Reservoir. Over 130,000 people were forced to evacuate, leaving behind their stone churches, their schools, and their cemeteries. For decades, the city was deep underwater, erased from maps and forbidden from discussion. However, in recent years, during exceptionally dry summers, the water level of the reservoir has dropped, and Mologa has risen from the dead. The paved streets, the foundations of the Epiphany Cathedral, and the rusted iron fences of the graveyards appear in the mud. It is a grey, colourless ruin, stripped of all paint and vegetation by the water. The returning residents walk the muddy streets of their childhood, placing flowers on the foundations of homes that exist only in the dry intervals of the hydrological cycle. In the warm, dry landscape of Portugal, the village of Vilarinho da Furna tells a story of communal loss beneath the waters of the Homem River. This was a unique community, living by a set of ancient democratic laws that dated back to the Visigoths, governed by a communal council known as the Junta. In 1972, a hydroelectric dam flooded the valley and the village was submerged. The residents stripped their houses of tiles and timber before the water rose, leaving only the naked stone skeletons of their homes. Today, when the reservoir level falls, the village emerges as a labyrinth of granite walls. The stone is bleached white by the sun and the water, creating a stark, bone-like appearance against the green hills. Visitors can walk through the empty doorways and along the stone paths that were worn smooth by centuries of communal feet, witnessing a social experiment that survived wars and kings, but could not survive the need for electricity. Across the Atlantic, in the arid interior of northeastern Brazil, the ruins of Petrolandia stand as a testament to the power of the São Francisco River. The original town was flooded by the Itaparica Dam in 1988. The water swallowed homes, farms, and streets, but one structure refused to disappear: the Church of the Sacred Heart. The church was never finished, so it lacks a roof, but its massive, arched facade rises surrealistically from the blue water of the reservoir. It looks like a Roman aqueduct or a portal to another world, standing in the middle of a lake. The red brick and concrete have been stained by the water, but the structure remains sound. Birds nest in the upper arches, and fish swim through the nave. It is a ruin that has become part of the landscape, a solitary monument to faith and displacement that breaks the flat horizon of the water with its rhythmic, architectural curves. In the high mountains of Venezuela, The town of Potosi suffered a similar fate. In 1985, the Uribante Caparo Dam was built, and the town was evacuated and flooded. For 25 years, the only sign of Potosi was a lonely church cross sticking a few inches out of the water, marking the location of the sunken steeple. But in 2010, a severe drought caused by El Niño drained the reservoir. Slowly, the cross rose higher, followed by the belfry, then the roof, and finally, the Gothic facade of the church. The entire building emerged, bleached white and crusted with dried mud. The cemetery reappeared, its tombstones toppled by the currents. It was a resurrection driven by climate, a town exhaling its breath after holding it for decades. The wind blew once more through the empty windows of the church, drying the silt on the altar before the rains returned to bury it again. Drifting to the Caribbean island of Nevis, we find the submerged city of Jamestown, often called the Pompeii of the Caribbean. In 1690, just 2 years before the destruction of Port Royal, a massive earthquake struck Nevis. It triggered a tsunami and soil liquefaction that caused Jamestown, the capital, to slide into the sea. Legend says the town sank so quickly that the cook fires were still burning when the ocean closed over them. Today, the ruins lie in about 20 feet of water. Divers can find the remains of brick walls and the outline of a fortress. But unlike the preserved items of Port Royal, the high energy of the waves has scoured Jamestown clean. It is a ruin of heavy stones and coral-encrusted cannons, a fortress that was defeated not by an enemy navy, but by the instability of the island's own foundation. It is a place of legends, where locals claim the church bells still ring before hurricanes, a sonic memory of the disaster. On the nearby island of St. Eustatius, the sunken ruins of the lower town of Oranjestad stretch out into the blue water. In the 18th century, this was the Golden Rock, one of the busiest ports in the world, a free trade zone where American revolutionaries bought gunpowder. The merchants built warehouses on a seawall that was reclaimed from the ocean. Over time, hurricanes and rising sea levels took the land back. Today, you can snorkel over the tops of 18th century stone walls that run parallel to the shore. The seafloor is littered with blue beads, a type of glass trading bead used as currency for slaves. These beads are the only colorful remnants of a dark history, shining like sapphires in the sand among the tumbled stones of the warehouses, washed clean by the ocean that eventually conquered the commerce of the Golden Rock. Returning to the calm waters of the Adriatic Sea in Croatia, we find the submerged Neolithic site of Solin on the island of Korčula. In 2023, archaeologists made a stunning discovery: a 7,000-year-old stone road connecting the sunken settlement to the current island. The road is made of carefully stacked stone plates, 4 meters wide, protected from the mud by the sand. It rests about 15 feet underwater. The settlement belonged to the Havar culture, a people who navigated the Adriatic long before Rome or Greece rose to power. Swimming over this road is a journey through time. You are following a path laid by human hands in the Stone Age, a highway that was walked by people carrying flint tools and pottery, now used only by crabs and currents. It is a piece of infrastructure that has outlasted the civilization that built it, a solid line drawn in the sand of the sea floor. Off the southern coast of Cyprus, the ancient harbour of Amathus presents a challenge of scale. This harbour was built around 300 BC by Demetrius the Besieger, intended to be a naval base for his fleet. It was never finished, and eventually, it sank due to earthquakes. The ruins are massive. The underwater moles, breakwaters, are constructed of limestone blocks that weigh up to 3 tons each. There are over 5,000 of these blocks lying in the shallow water. Swimming over Amathus is like flying over a giant's Lego set. You can see the lifting bosses carved into the stones, the knobs, used to tie ropes for hoisting. The sheer physical effort required to quarry, move, and place these stones is palpable in the water. The harbour is a monument to unfinished ambition, a naval base that never saw a war, now serving as a breakwater for the luxury hotels on the beach. Deep in the Pacific, in the Federated States of Micronesia, lies the enigmatic city of Nan Madol. While the main ruins stand on artificial islets above the water, a significant portion of the city extends beneath the surface. Known as the Venice of the Pacific, Nan Madol was built using massive basalt logs, natural volcanic columns that look like petrified wood. These heavy stones were stacked log cabin style to create walls and platforms. The submerged sections of the city include sacred eel pools and possible tombs. The basalt logs, covered in coral and sponges, look like a natural formation, but their geometry betrays them. The silence here is heavy, amplified by the mangroves that surround the site. The water is dark and tannic. Exploring the underwater edges of Nan Madol feels like entering a secret garden of stone, where the boundary between the island and the ocean was intentionally blurred by the builders, creating a city that is half terrestrial, half aquatic. In the middle of the Danube River, between Romania and Serbia, lies the memory of the island of Ada-Calais. This was not just a sunken city, but a sunken culture. Ada-Calais was a fortress island that had been a Turkish exclave for centuries, a piece of the Ottoman Empire left behind in Europe. It was famous for its rose jam, its tobacco, and its narrow, twisting streets. In 1970, the construction of the Iron Gates hydroelectric dam submerged the island forever. Before the water rose, some of the fortress walls and the mosque were dismantled and moved to a nearby island, but the soul of the place was drowned. The island now sits under 100 feet of swirling river water. It is a ghost island where the scent of roses and Turkish coffee has been replaced by the smell of river mud and the hum of the turbines. A cultural pocket universe extinguished by the need for power. Along the coast of Oregon and Washington in the Pacific Northwest, the ghost forests of the Cascadia subduction zone tell a story of terrifying geological violence. These are not cities of stone, but cities of trees. In the year 1700, a massive megathrust earthquake caused the coastline to drop several feet instantly. The ocean rushed in, flooding the coastal cedar and spruce forests with salt water. The trees died but remained standing, their roots pickled in the brine. Today, at low tide, or under the water in estuaries like the Neskowin Beach, you can see the stumps of these ancient trees rising from the sand. They are barnacle-encrusted, eroded, and hollow, looking like the pillars of a ruined temple. They are the silent witnesses to a tsunami that crossed the entire Pacific, standing in formation as a reminder that the earth can drop out from under us in a heartbeat. In the hills of Wales, the reservoir of Llyn Selyn holds the drowned village of Capel Selyn. This is a site of deep political and cultural grief. In 1965, the village was flooded to provide water for the English city of Liverpool, despite the fierce protests of the Welsh residents. It was one of the last Welsh-speaking communities in the area. The school, the post office, and the chapel were all submerged. When the water levels drop during droughts, the foundations of the chapel and the tombstones of the cemetery reappear. The drowning of Capel Selyn sparked a resurgence in Welsh nationalism, embodied in the graffiti slogan, Cofiwch Drywarin, remember Trywarin. The sunken village is not just a ruin, it is a martyr, a symbol of cultural resilience that sleeps beneath the water, its memory kept alive by the very act of its destruction. Similarly, in the Lake District of England, the village of Mardale Green lies beneath the Haweswater Reservoir. Flooded in 1935, To supply Manchester with water, the village was dismantled before the end. The church was demolished, and the bodies in the churchyard were exhumed and moved. However, the stone walls of the farms and the humpback bridge over the original stream remain. In dry summers, the village emerges from the retreating water. The stone walls, built without mortar in the traditional style, are still standing, marking the boundaries of fields that haven't been farmed for 90 years. It is a landscape of grey stone and mud, a spectral map of agriculture that appears like a mirage when the cities downstream get thirsty. The silence of Mardale Green is the silence of a valley that was turned into a tank, its history stored in the cold, deep water. On the Pacific coast of Colombia, the island of Gorgona hides a more sinister sunken history. This island was once a high-security prison, the Alcatraz of Colombia, where prisoners were kept in horrific conditions, surrounded by poisonous snakes and shark-infested waters. The prison was closed in 1984, and the jungle has reclaimed the buildings on land. But the pier and parts of the waterfront infrastructure have collapsed into the ocean. Divers can swim through the ruins of the old dock, where supplies and prisoners once arrived. The concrete beams are now covered in soft corals and gorgonians. The place that was once a symbol of suffering has been colonized by a vibrant marine ecosystem. The sharks that once terrified the prisoners now swim peacefully through the wreckage of their cages, a transformation of pain into life by the indifferent power of the sea. In the Spanish city of Badalona, near Barcelona, the modern museum preserves a sunken city that is underground rather than underwater. But the effect is the same. The Roman city of Baiatulo lies 10 feet below the modern streets. You can walk on glass walkways over the remains of the Roman baths, the shops, and the houses. But the most sunken part is the drainage system and the water conduits, which still channel water. The preservation is so complete that you can see the soot on the walls of the hypocaust, the underfloor heating system. While not submerged in the ocean, it is submerged in the earth, a city that sank under the weight of time and sediment, creating a subterranean mirror of the bustling Spanish city above, a quiet, dusty basement where the Roman Empire still sleeps. Finally, we travel to the high Andes of Colombia to Lake Guatavita, a circular, emerald green lake formed in a crater. This is the source of the legend of El Dorado. It was not a city of gold, but a ritual. The Muisca chief, covered in gold dust, would row out to the center of the lake on a raft and throw gold offerings, emeralds, figurines, and jewelry into the deep water. The lake floor is a sunken treasury of offerings. While many attempts were made to drain the lake and loot it, the mud at the bottom is deep and treacherous. The city here is a city of objects, a layer of gold artifacts resting in the freezing anoxic silt. They are gifts to the gods, not meant for human hands. The lake holds them tight, protecting the sacred offerings in a silence that has outlasted the conquistadors, the treasure hunters, and the empires of men, keeping the true El Dorado safe in the dark, cold mud of the mountain. Drifting deep into the Central Pacific, within the sheltered waters of Chuk Lagoon, lies a sunken fleet that forms one of the most haunting underwater cities in the world. This is not a city of houses, but a metropolis of war machines. In 1944, during Operation Hailstone, dozens of Japanese supply ships, merchant vessels, and aircraft were sent to the bottom in a matter of days. Today, they rest in the silence of the lagoon, transforming into vibrant coral reefs. The Fujikawa Maru, a massive freighter, sits upright on the sand. Divers can swim along its decks and enter the cargo holds, where Zero fighter planes still sit in rows, their wings folded, waiting for a takeoff that never came. The cockpits are now occupied by glassfish and sponges. Tanks and trucks are lashed to the decks, their tires flattened by 70 years of pressure, their metal skins slowly dissolving into rust that bleeds orange into the blue water. It is a ghost fleet where the violence of war has been replaced by the slow, colorful colonization of the coral, turning guns into gardens and bridges into balconies for soft corals that sway in the gentle current. In the nearby Marshall Islands, the ghost fleet of Bikini Atoll tells a darker story of the atomic age. These ships, including the massive aircraft carrier USS Saratoga, were not sunk in battle, but were used as test targets for nuclear weapons. The Saratoga lies in 180 feet of water, a leviathan of the deep. Because of the depth and the isolation, the ship is incredibly well preserved. The flight deck stretches out into the gloom, a massive flat runway for sharks. In the hangars, huge Helldiver bombers still sit in the dark, their instruments intact. The ship is a monument to a time when humanity unleashed the power of the sun on the ocean. The heat of the blast initially scoured the ship, but now the life has returned. The bridge is covered in whip corals that spiral out into the water, and schools of trevally patrol the elevator shafts. It is a nuclear tomb that has been forgiven by the sea, wrapped in a blanket of living biology that hides the scars of the bomb. Returning to the cold, muddy waters of northern Europe, we find the drowned land of Sunken in the Netherlands. This was once a prosperous polder, a drained marshland with thriving villages and fertile fields. In 1584, during the 80 Years' War, Dutch soldiers deliberately breached the dikes to flood the land and stop the advancing Spanish army. The water rushed in, and the land was lost forever. It never dried out again. Today, Sunken is a vast salt marsh, a wilderness of mud and tidal channels. The villages lie beneath the mud. Occasionally, the shifting channels expose the brick foundations of a church or the wooden stumps of a farmhouse. The legend of the Sunken mermaid says the flood was a curse, but the reality is a tactical decision that turned a home into a weapon. The mud here is deep and treacherous, a heavy, sucking clay that holds the ruins tight, allowing only the cry of the seagulls and the rush of the tide to mark the spot where people once lived. On the coast of East Yorkshire in England, the lost town of Ravensey remains one of the most mysterious disappearances in maritime history. In the 13th century, it was a pirate haven and a major port that rivaled the king's own harbours. It was built on a shifting sandbank in the Humber estuary, but the sand was unstable. In the mid-1300s, a series of ferocious storms began to wash the island away. The town chroniclers wrote of the sea rising like a wall and the foundations of the chapel crumbling into the tide. By 1362, the entire town had vanished. There are no stone ruins left to dive on, for the town was built of timber and wattle, and the ground itself dissolved. Ravensey exists now only as a navigational hazard, a shoal of sand that moves with the currents, a ghost town that literally turned into the seabed, grinding the history of its pirates into the fine, grey silt of the estuary. Similarly, the old town of Winchelsea in Sussex was a victim of the Great Storm of 1287. This storm was so powerful, it redirected the flow of rivers and redrew the map of England. Old Winchelsea, a major port for the wine trade, was completely inundated. The inhabitants fled to a hill nearby to build New Winchelsea, leaving their old homes to the waves. The ruins of the old town lie somewhere in the shallow, turbid waters of Rye Bay. Fishermen occasionally snag their nets on medieval stonework, but the visibility is so poor that the town has never been properly mapped. It is a city of shadows, felt but not seen, a place where the wine cellars that once held the best vintages of France are now filled with the salty brown water of the English Channel. In the clear, sunlit waters of the Saronic Gulf, the sunken harbour of Kenchriai offers a glittering surprise amidst the ruins. This was the eastern port of ancient Corinth, a bustling hub mentioned in the letters of St. Paul. It sank due to seismic activity around 375 AD. Excavations in the submerged warehouses revealed a treasure that had been packed away and forgotten. Crates of opus sectile glass panels. These were intricate stained glass mosaics, intended for the windows of a temple or a wealthy villa. They were found still packed in their shipping crates, stacked on the floor of the sunken warehouse. The glass depicts birds, plants, and geometric patterns in vivid greens, reds, and yellows. Preserved by the sea, the glass has not faded. To find crates of unopened art sitting on the bottom of the ocean is to find a delivery that is 1,600 years late, a shipment of beauty that arrived safely at the harbour but never made it to the shore. Deep in the volcanic crater of Lake Bracciano in Italy, the Neolithic site of La Marmotta reveals the maritime sophistication of the Stone Age. Buried in the lake bed silt, roughly 35 feet down, archaeologists found the remains of a village dating back 7,500 years. The oxygen-free mud preserved 5 massive dugout canoes carved from single oak trunks. One of them is over 35 feet long. These were not crude rafts. They were sleek, seaworthy vessels capable of crossing the Mediterranean. The village itself is a collection of wooden posts and wattle walls, collapsed and preserved in the clay. They found baskets, ropes, and even woven textiles. The silence of the lake has kept the wood from rotting, holding the canoes in a state of readiness, as if the rowers just pulled them up onto the mud bank and walked away into the forest of the past. Off the coast of Alabama, in the Gulf of Mexico, lies a sunken city, not of humans, but of trees. In 60 feet of water, divers discovered a bald cypress forest that has been buried under sediment for 60,000 years. Hurricane Ivan uncovered it in 2004. The trees are stumps, cut off at the sediment line, but they are perfectly preserved. The wood is not petrified, it is still wood. When scientists cut into it, it smells like fresh cypress sap and lemon. The bark is still intact. These trees grew during the last ice age when the sea level was much lower and the coast was miles further out. The forest stands in the grey sand, a ghostly woodland where fish swim between the trunks of trees that were alive when woolly mammoths roamed North America. It is a landscape out of time, a drowned forest that still holds the scent of an ancient morning. Beneath the cold waves of Lake Huron, on a submerged land bridge called the Alpena Amberley Ridge, lies evidence of ancient caribou hunters. This ridge once connected Michigan to Ontario. Acoustic surveys have revealed lines of stones arranged on the lake bed that stretch for miles. These are drive lanes, structures built by Paleo-Indians 9,000 years ago to funnel migrating caribou herds into kill zones. The stones are covered in zebra mussels now, but the pattern is unmistakable. There are hunting blinds, circular piles of rock where a hunter would crouch and wait, sitting in the silent, dark water. It is a frozen hunting ground. You can trace the path the animals would have taken, running across a dry plain that is now 100 feet underwater, chased by the ghosts of hunters whose stone tools still lie scattered in the muck. In the limestone cliffs of Calanques National Park in France, the entrance to the Cosca Cave lies 120 feet below the surface of the Mediterranean. This cave contains some of the oldest and most beautiful prehistoric art in the world, but it can only be reached by diving through a long, dangerous underwater tunnel. The cave was inhabited during the Ice Age when the sea level was lower. As the water rose, it flooded the entrance and the lower chambers, sealing the cave off from the world. In the upper air-filled chambers, the walls are covered in paintings of horses, bison, seals, and penguins. There are stencils of human hands outlined in red ochre and black charcoal. The rising sea has licked away the lower paintings, but the upper ones remain, protected by the air pocket. It is a submerged gallery, a sacred space where the handprints of our ancestors are kept safe by the very water that trapped them. A similar site exists in the Grotte de la Triperie, also in France, near Marseille. Here, the entrance is also submerged, leading to a chamber that was once a shelter for Paleolithic humans. But unlike Cosca, this cave is entirely filled with water. The paintings have been washed away, but the floor of the cave tells the story. Divers found flint tools and charcoal from hearths embedded in the cave floor, cemented in place by calcite. It is a home that was slowly drowned. The silence here is total. A diver floating in the center of the cave is floating in the living room of a family that lived 20,000 years ago, surrounded by the stone walls that sheltered them from the Ice Age winds, now sheltering only blind cave shrimp and the dark water. In Florida, the warm mineral springs is a sinkhole that acts as a natural time capsule. The water is warm, anaerobic, and mineral-rich, creating perfect preservation conditions. Deep on the ledges of the sinkhole, underwater archaeologists found evidence of human burial practices dating back 10,000 years. They found a human skull that still contained brain matter, preserved by the unique chemistry of the water. This was not a city, but a sacred cenote, a place where the early inhabitants of Florida placed their dead. The ledges where they stood are now 40 feet underwater. The spring is a vertical graveyard, a column of water that holds the physical remains of the first Americans in a suspension of warm, sulfuric silence. Nearby, at Little Salt Spring, another discovery shattered our understanding of prehistoric life. On a submerged ledge nearly 90 feet down, divers found the shell of an extinct giant tortoise. Piercing the shell was a wooden stake. This was a kill site. 12,000 years ago, a hunter had staked the tortoise to the ground to cook it or keep it, but the tortoise escaped into the water or the water rose, preserving the moment forever. The wooden stake is still there, sticking out of the shell. It is a freeze frame of a hunt that happened at the end of the Pleistocene. The water in the spring is still and dark, holding the tortoise and the stake in a breathless embrace, a meal that was never eaten, waiting in the dark for a hunger that has long since faded. Off the coast of Israel, near the submerged village of Atlit Yam, lies another settlement known as the Ein Hod Olive Press. This site is simpler, a rural farmstead now under the sea. The most prominent feature is a massive stone basin used for crushing olives to make oil. It sits upright on the sandy bottom, surrounded by the scattered stones of the workshop. Olive oil was the liquid gold of the ancient Mediterranean, and this press is the machine that made it. To see it underwater is jarring. It is a tool of the dry, sun-baked earth now resting in the salt water. It speaks of the continuity of agriculture, of farmers who tended their groves on the coastal plain until the salt poisoned the roots and the sea took the stone press, ending the harvest forever. The concept of the sunken city is not just about the past. It is a living reality for the island nation of Kiribati. Facing rising sea levels due to climate change, the government has purchased land in Fiji as a potential refuge for its citizens. This is a pre-sunken state, a nation preparing for its own Atlantis moment. The villages of Kiribati are already experiencing the ocean washing through their living rooms during high tides. The sunken city is happening now, in slow motion. It is a poignant reminder that the stories of Thonis Heracleion and Pavla Petri are not just history, they are prophecies. The ocean is reclaiming the land, and we are watching the creation of the next great underwater ruins in real time. In the Great Blue Hole of Belize, a massive sinkhole in the middle of a coral reef, the geology itself tells the story of a drowned landscape. At a depth of about 130 feet, divers encounter massive stalactites hanging from the overhanging walls. Stalactites can only form in air by water dripping through limestone. Their presence proves that this deep, dark hole was once a dry cave system above sea level. Some of these stalactites are 40 feet long and 5 feet thick, immense stone icicles that grew over thousands of years in the dark silence of a dry cavern. When the Ice Age ended and the oceans rose, the cave flooded, freezing the geological growth. Now, sharks swim among the stalactites. It is a drowned cathedral of stone, a place where the architecture of the earth was built in the dry dark and is now preserved in the wet dark. The acoustics of the ocean floor play a role in how we perceive these ruins. Sound travels well in water, but it also gets trapped. In the deep sound channel or SOFAR channel, noises can travel for thousands of miles. A collapsing wall in a sunken city or the shifting of a stone pillar in an earthquake sends a low-frequency groan through the ocean that can be heard by hydrophones across the basin. The ocean remembers the sound of the destruction, the breaking of the land, the rushing of the water, the settling of the silt. These are acoustic events that reverberate in the physics of the water. The sunken cities are not silent. They are sources of a low, geological hum, the sound of the earth adjusting to the weight of the water on top of human history. The preservation of these sites is often aided by a process called concretion. When iron or bronze objects sit in seawater, they react with the minerals to form a hard, crusty shell around themselves. This concretion looks like a lump of rock, but inside, the artifact is protected from corrosion. A cannon, a sword, or a coin can sit inside a concretion for centuries, safe from the oxygen that would rust it away. It is nature's way of packaging history. Marine archaeologists have to X-ray these lumps to see what is inside. The ocean essentially wraps the city in a protective layer of stone, disguising the ruins as a reef to keep them safe from the ravages of time. Deep in the anoxic layer of the Black Sea, below 150 meters, there is no oxygen. This dead zone is the greatest museum of wooden ships in the world. In 2016, the Black Sea Maritime Archaeology Project discovered over 60 shipwrecks, including Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman vessels. One ship, known as Shipwreck 41, is so well preserved that the chisel marks of the carpenters are still visible on the planks. The ropes are still coiled on the deck. The rudder is still in place. It looks like it sank yesterday, yet it has been there for centuries. The lack of oxygen means no wood-eating worms can survive. It is a perfect, suspended animation. The ship stands upright in the darkness, its mast pointing toward a surface it will never see again, a vessel sailing forever in a sea of nothingness. And finally, we come to rest on the idea that the ocean is the ultimate curator of human existence. It does not judge, it merely swallows and keeps. From the stone temples of Egypt to the nuclear fleets of the Pacific, from the pirate dens of Jamaica to the prehistoric caves of France, the water holds it all. These sunken cities are not lost, they are safe. They are protected from the wars, the fires, and the rebuilding that erases history on land. In the cold, crushing dark, the past sits quietly, waiting. The silt settles like a soft blanket over the stones. The coral grows over the iron, and the water presses down with a heavy, comforting weight. sealing our memories in the eternal sleepy drift of the deep. As we ascend from the depths, leaving the silent streets and the drowned towers behind, let the weight of the water lift from your shoulders. We return to the surface, to the air and the light, but we carry with us the knowledge of the quiet world that lies beneath the waves. The ocean is a place of rest for history, a blue vault where the noise of the past is hushed into a peaceful slumber. If you enjoyed this slow drift through the sunken memories of the world, I invite you to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. It helps this little submersible of curiosity find its way to other sleepy travelers. But for now, let the tide carry you. Let the water hold you. You are safe. You are drifting. Good night.